The town of Crystal Cove is home to many strange and curious things. It's home to the infamous Mystery Gang who call themselves Mystery Incorporated. They are a group of teenagers dedicated to investigating and solving the strange and paranormal occurrences in their town, which usually are fake. Crystal Cove is also home to a rumored treasure and a terrifying curse, a curse that is embedded in the very lives of all those who reside in Crystal Cove.
A truth that should have remained hidden. The truth behind the curse of Crystal Cove. The real mystery has just begun.
Please, you have to believe me. The curse will destroy you just like it destroyed my friends.
My family came upon a mysterious artifact, a key to finding the great cursed treasure rumored to lie beneath Crystal Cove.
Hello and welcome to the second part of the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated Timeline Explained. Today I will be elaborating on the curse of Crystal Cove and diving deeper into the lore of the show. This timeline will catalogue the journey of the new Mystery Incorporated through Season 1 and Season 2 in a chronological order, where the episodes will be summarised for the sake of clarity and continuity. This video is a continuation of the first part, but you don't need to watch the first part to understand this one. Now, with that out of the way, let's begin our journey to understand the curse of Crystal Cove.
From 6 to 1, the spell is spun. No time to run. The curse begun.
The curse of Crystal Cove is first mentioned in Season 1, Episode 1, Beware the Beast from Below. The episode begins with Velma escorting a group of tourists as they travel around the town. Velma tells the tourists stories about documented cases of a supposed curse that exists in the town, the first being in 1630 when a garrison of conquistadors arrived in Crystal Cove but vanished soon after, and then in 1765 when a portion of the town disappeared mysteriously alongside a group of missionaries that first established the town, followed by the affluent Darrow family who vanished on Halloween night 70 years ago and had their entire estate disappear with them. The curse is talked about briefly, but it's referenced as just another spooky tale, one that Velma thinks is fake and that her mother Angie Dinkley exaggerates in order to get unsuspecting tourists to buy merchandise from the Crystal Cove Spook Museum. Later in the episode, a supposed green slime monster begins to terrorize the town and trapping people inside cocoons. The Mystery Gang are tasked with finding and uncovering who is behind the attacks. As the gang race to find the monster, their investigation leads them to a cave beneath Crystal Cove. While searching the cave, Daphne finds a golden locket on the floor with a question mark engraved on its outside and on the inside a picture of a teenage boy and girl. The gang assume it belongs to the person behind the attacks. However, nearing the end of the episode when the monster is unmasked by the teenagers before Mayor Jones as Professor Ruffalo denies that the locket is his and insists that he's never seen it before. Daphne and the gang are left in possession of the locket and confused by where it came from. Unbeknownst to the group, Mayor Jones, Fred's father, had noticed the locket and seemed to have recognized it but remained silent. At the end of the episode, the gang hang out at the Kegel, a radio station owned by their friend Angel Dynamite. Daphne continues to wonder who the locket belongs to as she talks with Fred. In the middle of their conversation, the phone in the room rings and Shaggy, expecting it to be a radio request from the viewers, answers it, only to be met with a sinister voice telling him that they're doomed. Everybody immediately gathers around the phone as the voice on the other end introduces himself as Mr. E and tells them they should have never taken the locket from the caves, and in doing so that they have uncovered a truth that should have remained hidden, a truth behind the curse of Crystal Cove, and that the real mystery has just begun.
Like K-Ghoul 101.4, what can we scare up for you, Daddy-O?
You're all doomed.
Like who? Who is this?
You can call me Mr. E. You should never have brought that locket out of the cave. You don't know what you've uncovered.
Uncovered? Uncovered what?
A truth that should have remained hidden. The truth behind the curse of Crystal Cove. The real mystery has just begun.
This call from Mr. E would be the first of many, and it would ultimately set in motion everything that would happen in the series. Following the events of the previous episode, Episode 2, The Creeping Creatures, opens with the Mystery Gang congregated at Fred's house on a rainy night during a thunderstorm. The gang speculate about Mr. E, this mystery man who knows about the curse. As the gang talk about Mr. E, a knock is heard at the front door. Fred goes to answer the door and is met by a postman holding a package addressed for Fred Jones. Fred takes the package inside and opens it in front of his friends. Inside the package is an envelope with a bright red E as the seal from none other than Mr. E. Alongside the letter, a handbag made of supposed real alligator skin from Gatorsburg. Upon seeing the bag, the gang immediately doubt the validity of the animal product. As it turns out, Gatorsburg is the neighboring town of Crystal Cove, and it had run out of gators years ago after prospectors came into the town in search of gold in the 1800s, but instead dug up alligators which were used for animal products. The gang then read the letter, which states, "Save this for a rainy day, enjoy," alluding to the idea that there is a mystery lurking in Gatorsburg. The gang then decide to pursue the mystery, driving to Gatorsburg, a spooky town that is now reduced to nearly nothing. While the teenagers are in Gatorsburg investigating the case of the supposed real animal skin, their van known as the Mystery Machine breaks down and they are helped by Greta Grader, and Gunter Grader, an unsettling family that still live in Gatorsburg despite its desertion, and who long for the days where gators were alive and the town was thriving. During the night, the teenagers check into the Drowsy Gator Hotel, a hotel owned by Greta and her family, but they are attacked by 3 alligator-like creatures who chase them out of Gatorsburg. The gang realize that this is the mystery Mr. E wanted them to investigate, which leads them to return to Gatorsburg in order to find out who and what the alligator creatures are. By the end of the episode, the gang uncover that the alligator creatures are unsurprisingly the Gator family, who had been making imitation alligator products and had been dressing up as gators to scare away anyone who would dare step into Gatorsburg and uncover their plans. The Gator family are then taken into custody by the Crystal Cove Police Department. The mystery gang asks for a ride home as their van is still broken, but there is simply not enough space. The teenagers assume that they're stuck in Gatorsburg, however they hear the Mystery Machine rev up to life suddenly. The Mystery Machine has been mysteriously fixed, and on the hood of the van is a letter with Mr. E's insignia, a letter that delivers another warning.
Hope you had a good time in Gatorsburg, but be warned, there are more mysteries to come. This is only one piece of the puzzle.
Skipping over to episode 4, Revenge of the Man Crab, the mystery gang are tasked with dealing with a mutant crab who's abducting kids at the beach and ruining a volleyball tournament that Crystal Cove is hosting. The kids race against time to stop and find this man crab before it abducts anybody else. To do so, they seek help from Angel, and it is there at the Kegel during their investigation that they are sent another letter from Mr. E. This time containing an old torn up newspaper article about 4 kids who disappeared in the Crystal Cove caves, and a brief 8-track tape of Mr. E's voice with a message suggesting that they investigated. Angel, who is with them, asks to look at the article, seemingly taking a great interest in it, but when she is asked, denies knowing anything about the 4 missing kids. The mystery gang disregard Mr. E's request momentarily, focusing on solving the man crab mystery instead. By the end of the episode, they solve it and once again return to the Kegel Lounge to recuperate while Angel works in the broadcast booth. Velma then brings up the previous letter that Mr. E had given them as well as the newspaper article. Upon seeing this, Daphne gasps, stating that she recognizes 2 of the kids in the article. She pulls out the locket she found in the cave and holds it side by side to the article, revealing that the 2 kids in the locket are the same ones in the article who disappeared. Now, with some semblance of a lead, Velma announces that this is yet another mystery they have to solve. Unbeknownst to the gang, Angel suspiciously listens into their conversation through the station's soundboard. The episode ends there, hinting at the fact that perhaps Angel, just like Mayor Jones in episode 1, knows more than they're letting on. Episode 6, The Legend of Alice May, continues the mystery of the supposed curse. In this episode, a string of disappearances, all who happen to be teenage boys, begin to occur during prom night, and they are all caused by an apparent ghost girl. Meanwhile at Crystal Cove High School, a prom is being held soon. Daphne, wanting to go with Fred, begins to drop subtle hints, but he is stupidly oblivious to her advances. This angers Daphne, but she is angered more by Fred's attachment to a new transfer student by the name of Alice May, a blonde teenage girl who everybody is interested in. To make matters worse, Alice reciprocates Fred's interest, which immediately causes Daphne to dislike her. Daphne's dislike and suspicion towards Alice May grows as she realizes that Alice transferred around the same time that the reports began to come up about the ghost girl. She is the only one to notice this though, but she keeps it to herself. Later at night, Daphne stays back at the school library researching the 4 missing kids from the Crystal Cove caves, however unsuccessfully, as any records relating to any missing kids look as if they have been purposely removed or destroyed. Suddenly the lights in the library go out. Daphne tries to turn the lights back on, but as she struggles with them, she hears footsteps in the dark which startle her. She calls out, hoping to get someone to respond. Instead, she sees what appears to be a person watching her from afar, but as she takes a step towards them, the figure runs away. Daphne immediately gives chase, following the figure which leads her to the girls' locker room, but there she finds nobody. Daphne is racked with nerves, so she stands in front of one of the bathroom mirrors and splashes her face with some water from the sink to calm herself. However, when she opens her eyes and wipes the water from her face, she sees in the reflection of the mirror a ghoulish figure standing behind her. But when she turns around, it's only Alice May, who says she's been using the showers at school since the water at her house has not been turned on yet. Daphne is unconvinced by this answer and is still skeptical of Alice. Her suspicions are confirmed to be true as towards the end of the episode, the ghost girl is revealed to be none other than Alice May, who confesses to kidnapping teenage boys and would have done the same to Fred to get revenge. It turns out that Alice is Deacon Carswell's daughter. Deacon Carswell's being an off-screen character who is referenced as the Creeper, a man who adorned a costume and terrorized the town but was thrown in jail after being foiled by the Mystery Gang. Alice had come up with an elaborate plan to get back at the Mystery Gang for taking her father away from her, but just like her father, she was foiled by the Mystery Gang. Alice is taken away by the sheriff and Daphne rejoices at the mystery being solved and the idea that no one is taking her Fred away. However, the biggest twist comes towards the end of the episode. As Alice is being taken away, the gang go to the mystery machine intending to go home. Next to the van is a backpack that belonged to Alice May. Daphne takes the backpack, but as she does, an old yearbook falls out. She picks up the yearbook. Inside the yearbook is a page that has been bookmarked. Daphne flips to the page and is shocked by what she finds. On the pages are the photos of the 4 missing kids along with their names and details. The yearbook reveals that Brad Charles and Judy Reeves were the teenagers whose picture was in the locket. Ricky Owens and Cassidy Williams are the remaining teenagers, and in addition to this, they had an animal mascot called Professor Pericles. The yearbook also reveals that the teenagers were members of a mystery solving club called Mystery Incorporated. Daphne shows her friends and the gang talk about the similarities between their group and Mystery Incorporated. They also decide to adopt the name Mystery Incorporated, referring to themselves as the New Mystery Inc. As the group reads more about the missing teenagers, elsewhere at the Crystal Cove County Jail, Alice May is bailed out by a mysterious man called Ed Machine, a man who was revealed to be an associate of Mr. E's. Once Alice is free, Ed Machine asks her if everything went according to plan, and Alice confirms that she left her backpack for the mystery gang to find, and that she'll be long gone before they realize that Deacon Carswell had no daughter. Alice then questions why such an elaborate plan was hatched for something as simple as a yearbook, but Ed tells her that she was paid for a job and that all she needs to know is Mr. E wants the mystery gang to investigate the disappearances of 4 teenagers.
Let's just say he needed them to start looking into the real mystery hiding beneath Crystal Cove. A mystery that led to the disappearance of 4 youths. A mystery whose time has come to be solved.
We jump over to episode 8, The Grasp of the Gnome, where yet another creature is terrorizing the townsfolk. This time, a gnome is terrorizing the people of Crystal Cove, particularly those dressed as pirates at a Renaissance fair. The gang attend the Renaissance fair to stop the gnome. They split up in order to look for clues. Velma finds herself alone when she is suddenly bumped into by a fair attendee dressed as an executioner who drops a small box beside her. Velma tries to inform the man that he dropped something, but he is already gone. She then picks up the small box and discovers that the box contains Mr. E's seal. Inside the box is a note that reads, "Don't give up, this has all happened before." The note is accompanied by an old photo of the original Mystery Incorporated, and Professor Pericles is circled in red pen. We skip ahead 2 episodes to episode 10, Howl of the Fright Hound, that begins with a dramatic start where a robotic dog, one with a similar resemblance to Scooby-Doo, begins to torment Crystal Cove citizens, which leads the town people to believe that Scooby-Doo is responsible for the attacks. Scooby-Doo is then falsely accused and put into an animal asylum. The gang vow to prove Scooby-Doo's innocence and find the robotic dog responsible for the attacks, but first they visit Scooby-Doo because Shaggy misses him. When Shaggy visits Scooby-Doo, he promises to clear his name and get him out. After visiting Scooby, the teenagers are given a tour by one of the guards, who shows them some of the most dangerous animals in Crystal Cove, and eventually leads them to the most dangerous animal in their custody, a parrot named Professor Pericles. The teenagers immediately recognize him as the animal mascot for the original Mystery Incorporated. The guard explains that Pericles was imprisoned because he was the last person to have seen the teenagers and thus assumed to be the cause of their disappearance. The guard also warns them not to trust Pericles as he is highly intelligent and very manipulative. Pericles laughs and taunts the guard before turning his attention towards the teenagers and delivering a warning, particularly to Fred, who he instructs to beware of those closest to you. The gang wonder about the warning, but they agree to focus on the real mystery at hand, the robotic dog and how to find it. But finding the dog doesn't prove to be hard as it comes to them. The robotic dog attacks the asylum, going directly for Scooby-Doo and causing a riot at the asylum where all the animals escape their cages. In the end, the gang are able to destroy the robotic dog and Scooby-Doo's name is cleared. All the animals are brought back to their enclosures except one, Professor Pericles, who escaped amidst the chaos and is now at large. Following his escape, the mystery gang receive another message from Mr. E, telling them to follow the parrot. Episode 12, The Shrieking Madness, sees the gang visit Darrow University for an open day, a university named after the Darrow family whose estate vanished 70 years ago with them inside. The gang intend to spend their day figuring out what pathway they want to take after high school. However, as usual, their plans are cut short by a person masquerading as a creature. A monster by the name of Chargar Gothicon, based on H.P. Hatecraft's books, a parody of H.P. Lovecraft's works, comes to life and begins to attack students, which causes the teenagers to jump into action. After tedious investigation and choosing career pathways, the mystery is solved and the gang decide to go home. They head towards the mystery machine, but as they open it, they find a trunk in the back of the van. A trunk that reads Darrow University, Darrow Family Archive, and of course a letter from Mr. E. The group read Mr. E's letter aloud, which reads, "If the first Mystery Inc. had what was in this trunk, maybe they would have never vanished in the first place." The gang open the trunk and find that it's filled to the brim with historical documents, letters, logs, and what seemingly is the entire history of Crystal Cove. Skipping 4 episodes ahead to episode 16, where Aphrodite walks, the entire town is hypnotized after being subjected to an aphrodisiac called Aphrodite's love spell that was concocted by a hideous woman who calls herself Aphrodite. Aphrodite intends to control the townspeople with love. Everyone in the town is brought under her spell, including the mystery gang, except for Scooby-Doo, who is not susceptible to it as he is an animal. Alone and without the help of the rest of the mystery gang, Scooby-Doo wanders around Crystal Cove in search of help. That is when he is approached by Pericles, who had escaped the animal asylum in a previous episode. Pericles offers to help Scooby-Doo make an antidote that will cure the townsfolk. However, Scooby-Doo is reluctant to trust the parrot, but his choices are limited, so he is forced to work with Pericles. With reluctance from Scooby-Doo, Pericles instructs him on where to find ingredients for the antidote around town, whilst also carefully evading the brainwashed citizens. Pericles guides Scooby-Doo through many locations, retrieving the ingredients from churches, museums, and mines, until finally they have all the ingredients to make an antidote. After the antidote is completed, Scooby-Doo uses it on his friends first and frees them from Aphrodite's love spell. The gang attempt to free more people, but they are unable to as they are overwhelmed by hordes of citizens who are still under the spell. The group is nearly captured again by the brainwashed townspeople and offered to Aphrodite, but they are saved by Angel Dynamite at the last moment, who arrives in the mystery machine and helps the mystery gang and Professor Pericles flee. As they drive away from the horde, the gang wonder why Angel wasn't affected by the aphrodisiac, to which she responds saying that she was born with no sense of smell. Pericles then introduces himself to Angel and thanks her for saving his life. Angel and Pericles lock eyes momentarily, giving each other suspicious looks that go unnoticed by the group. Eventually, the mystery gang, with the help of Professor Pericles and Angel Dynamite, are able to cure the townspeople and unmask Aphrodite. The gang thanks Scooby-Doo and Angel for their help, and the teenagers wonder if Pericles may have changed. However, they are proven wrong as Ed Machine steps out of the shadows. Ed Machine was last seen in the episode The Legend of Alice May, having been revealed as an associate of Mr. E and aiding in an elaborate plot in order for the mystery gang to discover the identities of the missing kids. Ed Machine proceeds to play a recorded message that Professor Pericles sent to Mr. E, showing that the parrot's intentions of helping the town were all in his own self-interest, and that he has disappeared once again. On the recording, Pericles reveals that he orchestrated the Aphrodite mystery so that he could find certain objects that would help him find the supposed haunted treasure that lies beneath Crystal Cove, supposedly left by ancient conquistadors. Ed then delivers an eerie message stating that if the treasure were ever to be found, the town would be destroyed. Swiftly following the events of episode 16, the gang decide to delve way deeper into the mystery of the supposed curse, and they deliberate over all the information they've uncovered. At the Kegel, Velma summarizes the clues they have so far. In the midst of her summary, Angel suddenly says that Mr. E left Cassidy Williams' diary on her doorstep the previous night, and hands the diary over to the teenagers. The group inspect the diary, and Daphne notes that Mr. E's seal isn't on the diary as it usually is with his other packages, but she shrugs it off quickly. Daphne reads the diary out loud and she comes across the last entry that was left by Cassidy Williams before she disappeared. The last entry states that her and her friends were leaving to search the site of where the old Darrow Mansion used to be, which is now Darrow University, as Darrow University was built on top of where the mansion disappeared. With that clue, the gang decide to investigate Darrow University in order to find the Darrow Mansion. The teenagers search the university for an entry point of the old Darrow Mansion and descend into many rooms until they reach the boiler room, the lowest point of Darrow University, where the gang find a chimney that leads downwards. The group go down the chimney and they find themselves in the old Darrow Mansion, but as soon as they step inside, the fireplace closes, blocking their only escape. Then suddenly, a voice from a radio in the room welcomes them back, referring to them as Mystery Incorporated. However, the voice believes that they are the original Mystery Inc. The voice tells them that he'll never allow them to take his treasure, nor will he ever allow them to leave again. Traps then begin to go off around the mansion, but luckily the gang are able to evade them because of Fred. After searching the mansion, they are able to find and trap the mysterious person who has been leaving booby traps for them. They discover that the person behind the radio and all the traps is a decrepit old man who reveals himself to be Danny Darrow, the youngest member of the Darrow family. Danny explains that his family and their cat Whispers were known as the Mystery Fellowship. They loved solving mysteries and they loved finding treasure. One day they came across a new treasure, an artifact, a golden piece in the shape of a triangle that was the key to finding an even greater treasure. However, on Halloween night, for whatever reasons, they were overcome with a need to fight over the object and act possessive towards it. In the midst of their fighting, a deep rumble came from the ground, and their house began to shake. The earth below them opened up and the house began to submerge underground. The Darrow family were trapped and remained underground. Years passed and the family grew older and died except for Danny. Many years later, the original Mystery Incorporated would find the house and explore it. Danny, who believed they were after his treasure, chased them out of the house and set up elaborate traps in case they would ever return. But after realizing that the current mystery gang were not Mystery Incorporated, Danny gives up and admits that he wasted his life on the object. He hands it over to the mystery gang, but as he does, the house begins to rumble again and the ground opens up. Danny quickly tells the new Mystery Incorporated to get out and save themselves. The gang flees the mansion and watch it slowly descend. Danny is left inside and left with an ambiguous fate. The episode ends with the teenagers holding the triangular artifact, unaware of what they've acquired, and unaware that Mayor Jones has been secretly watching them from a distance. 3 episodes later, in Siren Song, Velma finds out about a mystery involving missing sardine boats near a haunted oil platform. She investigates it and finds a supposed mermaid who pleads for her help. Velma informs her friends about the mystery and about the mermaid. They agree to help her and suggest they should ask Angel for assistance. After informing Angel about the missing sardine boats, Angel suggests and wonders if the haunted oil platform is the same one that used to be owned by Destroido, a company that has been referenced a couple of times in previous episodes and that has a long history of not being environmentally friendly. The gang investigate further and Shaggy finds an article in the paper that the CEO of Destroido will be holding a press conference the next day. Shockingly, the CEO of Destroido is Ed Machine, Mr. E's associate. The gang are able to figure out the oil platform is not haunted, but instead it's just another case of a person masquerading as a monster. The mystery is solved and the gang go home, but Velma is not satisfied with the conclusion and decides to pay Angel a visit. Velma thanks Angel for her help but questions how she knew about the oil incident because Destroido covered it up, something that Velma reveals that she found out after researching the company. She also confronts Angel about her claims that Mr. E left Cassidy Williams' diary on her doorstep, believing it to be suspicious because Mr. E usually leaves packages with a calling card. Velma finally confronts Angel about what has been bothering her and accuses her of being Cassidy Williams, one of the original members of Mystery Incorporated. Angel looks at Velma with a shocked expression, but doesn't deny it. Straight after episode 20, episode 21 sees Angel Dynamite sneaking into what looks like Destroido. She sneaks past security and most of the guards, however she is caught by Ed Machine. Angel states that she is here to see Mr. E and Ed Machine takes her to him. It is then revealed that Mr. E is really the person behind Destroido. He is the owner of the company and Ed Machine is merely the face of it. Angel tells Mr. E that the gang retrieved a piece of the planispheric disc, alluding to the artifact that the teenagers found in the Darrow Mansion. She also expresses her concern for the kids with Pericles on the loose, believing that having the artifact will put them in further danger. In addition to this, she believes that it will cause former members of her group to return to Crystal Cove. Mr. E tells her not to worry, and that as long as Fred is alive, the other two will not move a muscle, implying that the other group members of Mystery Incorporated are somehow related to Fred. Then the episode cuts to City Hall as Mayor Jones tells the gang that he needs their help because a tourist attraction he bought might actually be endangering the lives of those in Crystal Cove. He explains that he was looking on the internet for new ways to bring in tourists to Crystal Cove when he came across a site called hauntedattractionsforsales.scare that was advertising an ancient Persian temple haunted by a manticore. However, he did not expect the manticore to come alive and pose an actual threat for those in the town. The gang promised the mayor that they will solve the mystery, and they head to the amusement park where the manticore was last seen. The mystery gang meet the owner of the amusement park, Winslow Fletch, and his daughter Hot Dog Water, or Marcy, who Velma already knows from the Science First Circuit, which both of them attend at school. Mr. Fletch informs the teenagers that due to the manticore, the amusement park is losing customers and is soon to go broke, resulting in Mr. Fletch wanting to close the park down. However, Fred urges Mr. Fletch to keep the park open just for a while they hunt the manticore. Mr. Fletch is hesitant but agrees. While investigating the mystery, the gang pay a visit to Angel at the Kegel. Velma checks the website where Mayor Jones purchased the amusement park, only to find out that the website has not only been closed, but it was also fake. This leads Velma to realize that the website was made purposely for Mayor Jones to notice, and that only a person with superior computer skills could have made it. The gang decide to split up to investigate the fishiness of it all. Fred sends Shaggy and Scooby back to the park while he, Daphne and Velma leave to talk to the mayor. However, Velma stays back momentarily to be alone with Angel. Velma questions Angel on why she hasn't told the gang about her identity. Angel responds by saying that she'll tell them eventually. She then inquires about the artifact the teenagers found and where they put it, and Velma says Fred has it. Fred, Daphne and Velma then visit Mayor Jones at City Hall. They walk in on Fred's father looking at a picture of something, but he quickly hides it under his desk as the teenagers come in. Fred notices his father's behavior, causing him to become suspicious, although he doesn't comment on it. The mystery gang asks the mayor some questions but leave to do more investigating. After the teenagers leave, Fred Jones Sr. takes a picture of what he was examining out from under his desk. The picture is actually a scroll, and it contains a drawing of what seems to be 6 pieces of a triangular artifact similar to the one the mystery gang found. Mayor Jones' strange behavior continues later in the episode while Velma's visiting Fred's house upon Fred's request to get some materials for a trap in his room. Velma finds Mayor Jones going through Fred's drawers in a suspicious manner. When Velma asks what he's doing, Mayor Jones gives a bad excuse and walks away. Velma leaves Fred's room worriedly, and when she spots him, she asks Fred where he hid the artifact. He tells her that he gave the artifact to Shaggy and Scooby, as they are the last people anyone would expect to have anything of value. At the end of the episode, the manticore is revealed to be Hot Dog Water, who created the fake website and got Mayor Jones to purchase the attraction. Later at Destroido, Angel is seen once again conspiring with Mr. E. She tells him that she put a bug on Velma, thus finding out that Shaggy and Scooby are the ones in possession of the artifact. Mr. E is pleased with this and states that everything will be fine, especially since Scooby is more trustworthy than Pericles ever was to him, revealing that Mr. E is none other than Ricky Owens. Episode 3 begins with a shocking revelation, as one night Mayor Jones is seen taking an object out of a safe in his room. Upon closer inspection, it appears to be an artifact similar to the one the mystery gang found in the Darrow mansion, however with different patterns engraved on it. Mayor Jones begins to examine the artifact when he hears something outside his bedroom, prompting him to put the artifact away. Believing it's his son Fred outside the door, he calls out for him and tells him to go away. However, it's not Fred, because Fred has been asleep in his room the entire time. Suddenly, there is a shout, causing Fred to wake up. He leaves his room and sees his father running down the hall and out of their house in fear. The next day at school, Fred tells his friends that for the past few days his father has been running out of the house and sleeping in the yard, too afraid to go back into his house. Not thinking much of it, Shaggy and Scooby offer to sleep over to see what the issue is, and Velma adds that her mother has a collection of herbal remedies in her shop that could help Mayor Jones sleep better. The gang then head to the Spook Museum where Angie Dinkley prepares some herbal tea for Fred's father. Fred explains Mayor Jones' situation to Velma's mother, and wanting to help, Angie introduces them to Lady Marmalade, the new barista at the Spook Museum, who happens to be an exorcist. Lady Marmalade suggests that Fred's father is being haunted, and she offers up her service to get rid of whatever is haunting him. The gang, not really believing in the paranormal, declines her offer. Later that night, Scooby and Shaggy stay at Fred's house as promised. While messing around in the living room, Scooby accidentally knocks over a photo on the mantelpiece. The framed photo is a picture of a blonde middle-aged woman who Fred explains is his mother and who left when he was a baby. The boys continue their sleepover and prepare for sleep. Fred goes back to his room and Shaggy and Scooby remain downstairs to watch a movie. Everything is calm for a short while and the house is quiet, until Fred is awoken by his father's screams. Fred immediately rushes to his father's room. When he enters, he finds objects flying around the bedroom and his father is pinned to the ceiling. After witnessing the supposed paranormal activity, Fred commits to figuring out who or what is terrorizing his father. He enlists the help of Lady Marmalade to hold a seance at his house, and as an extra precaution, Fred and his friends set up various cameras around his house. At midnight, Lady Marmalade begins the seance. She calls upon the spirits on her Ouija board and she asks the Ouija board questions. The board begins to move and the letters on the board spell out, "I am an old friend and I want what you took from me." When asked about the vengeful spirit, Mayor Jones denies knowing anything or having wronged anybody. This is a move that proves to be disastrous as his denial angers the spirit and the Ouija board bursts into flames and objects begin to fly around the room. Then a sinister ghostly cackle travels through the house. The gang, Lady Marmalade and Mayor Jones are too spooked to continue the seance and decide to leave the house. They all run towards the door and make it out of the house, except for Mayor Jones, who doesn't make it to the door fast enough and is pulled back by a strong force, leaving the doors to slam shut and trapping him inside. Lady Marmalade runs away, but the gang persist and go around the back of the house. They enter the house and begin to call out for Mayor Jones, but he is nowhere to be found. They check the cameras they had set up to see what happened to Fred's father, but as the footage is played back, it is shown that Mayor Jones was never grabbed, but he stepped back into the house and slammed the doors himself, making it appear if he was grabbed from behind. Another recording shows Mayor Jones going through the safe in his room and taking out the triangular artifact. The gang are not only shocked and confused as to why Mayor Jones has an artifact similar to theirs, but they are also confused to why he pretended to be grabbed. Fred is the most confused and begins to run around the house searching in every room for his father, but as hard as he tries, he cannot find him. Fred breaks down and begins to cry, but Daphne reassures him that they will find his father. The gang regroup and persist in order to solve the mystery and find Fred's father. In the end, it turns out the ghost that was haunting the Jones household was none other than Professor Pericles, who was using crafty technology. He admits that he infiltrated the Jones home in order to get the artifact, which he refers to as a piece of the planispheric disc. He also reveals that Mayor Jones stole the piece from him many years ago. Pericles then outsmarts the kids and flees once again, taking a piece of the disc with him, now in possession of one of the pieces of the disc. The gang eventually find Mayor Jones, who Pericles locked in the cellar of the house. They ask Mayor Jones if what Pericles said was true, but he denies it. However, Daphne isn't so convinced. Episode 25, Pawn of the Shadows, begins with a flashback to 20 years ago of the original Mystery Incorporated investigating an old Spanish church. Mystery Incorporated find a document with a picture of the planispheric disc on it, the same one the Mayor Jones was seen examining in episode 20. As the gang examine the document, above them, beside a window, they are observed by a ghoulish figure. The flashback ends and cuts to the present day, where the gang meet for breakfast at the Kegel. Fred shows his friends a new app on his phone that tells him the location of the mystery machine, as well as if the belongings in his van have moved. Velma gets out the disc piece to study. While studying it, she realizes that the writing engraved on the disc is backwards and in Spanish, causing her to further realize that many of the books in the trunk they had found are also in Spanish. As none of the gang speaks Spanish, Velma suggests they head to Darrow University to get H.P. Hatecraft to translate the books and the disc. They load the trunk in the van and then they drive to Darrow University. When they arrive at the university, Hatecraft is reluctant to help them, as he is busy trying to write a vampire romance catered towards teenagers. But when the gang offer to help write the story, he agrees to translate the books. The gang walk to the mystery machine in the car park to unload the books and bring them back to Hatecraft. As they are about to reach the mystery machine, the van suddenly explodes in front of them. The gang are shocked but have no time to process what's going on, as a figure dressed in leather with a robotic mask appears from the explosion. The figure, seemingly a woman, introduces herself as the Obliteratrix and says that she only has one purpose: to destroy Mystery Incorporated. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Angel Dynamite and Mr. E watch on a monitor a playback of the mystery machine exploding. Angel wants to help the gang, believing that it's Professor Pericles attacking them, but Mr. E insists that they do not intervene unless absolutely necessary. Ironically, Professor Pericles, who is elsewhere and has been spying on the teenagers, watches the Obliteratrix on a TV monitor and wonders if he should help the teenagers fight the Obliteratrix. The gang congregate at Darrow Library and mourn the loss of their van. They also realize that the van exploded alongside the trunk that was inside the mystery machine, the trunk that contained all the documents they needed to help solve the mystery, and without it they have to start from square one. Seeing that they have no other options, Velma suggests that they peruse through the library to find any clues or any documents that could help them solve the mystery. She instructs Daphne to go through the section of the library that contains Crystal Cove's history, while she checks the Spanish section. After searching through the Spanish section, Velma calls Fred and Daphne over to show them a page of a book where she discovered a familiar-looking drawing. Daphne and Fred look at the page and it's a complete planispheric disc consisting of 6 pieces. The book also explains that Spanish conquistadors used the disc to navigate uncharted oceans and also to hide treasure. This prompts Velma to ponder about the whereabouts of the other disc pieces and what the treasure could possibly be. Before she can ask any further questions, Fred's phone suddenly goes off. It's the app on his phone that allows him to see where the mystery machine is. This puzzles Fred because the app shouldn't be notifying him as the mystery machine was destroyed earlier, unless it wasn't. Fred decides to follow the tracker app on his phone and it leads him and the gang to a train station where shockingly the mystery machine is in one piece. However, it turns out to be a trap left by the Obliteratrix in order to bring the teenagers to her. She begins to attack them but they are able to ward her off. The teenagers escape and they are able to get the mystery machine back and the trunk that had all their documents. They return to Darrow University to Professor Haycraft who helps them sort through everything in the trunk. Haycraft finds several documents that reference coloro vidro, which translates to colored glass, and ore, which means prey. Daphne is able to connect the dots between colored glass and prey and links it to the stained glass that can be found in a church, a place where people go to pray. Scooby-Doo then remembers the stained glass in the old Spanish church where he and Pericles went the day Aphrodite attacked the town. The gang begin their investigation in the old Spanish church where they find another locket identical to the one Daphne found in the caves. Soon after, they discover a secret entrance that leads beneath the church. They are about to begin their descent, but the Obliteratrix appears again and begins to attack them. This time, she nearly succeeds in trapping them, but Angel Dynamite shows up and defeats her and they manage to trap the Obliteratrix. She is then unmasked and revealed to be Alice May. Alice reveals that Mr. E hired her to attack the gang to draw out Pericles from his hiding so that he may reveal where his piece of the disc is. Once Alice is taken away by the authorities, Daphne asks Angel how she knew where they were. Angel doesn't answer and looks at Velma. Velma sighs and says it's time to reveal the truth. Angel finally confesses that she is Cassidy Williams, a member of the original Mystery Incorporated. She explains that her and her friends were forced to leave town after they found a scroll of the disc. Angel then urges the group to stop their investigation and hand their piece either to Mr. E or Professor Pericles to avoid the same thing happening to them. The gang, with the exception of Velma, refuse to listen to Angel and are angered by the fact that she lied to them. They vow to continue solving the mystery and drive away, leaving her at the church. As they drive away, Angel calls out to them, warning them that the freak is still out there, and sure enough he is, watching from atop of the church in the shadows. Episode 26, All Fear the Freak, picks up exactly where we left off. The gang, who are determined to solve the mystery, plan to return to the Spanish church. Velma emails her friends a message that says midnight. Fred is at home when he receives the email. He tells his father that he's going to bed early, but before he can go, Mayor Jones tells Fred that he disapproves of his mystery-solving obsession, and he wishes that he would leave it alone. Although disapproving of it, he tells Fred that he loves him. Fred smiles and says that he knows, but when his father leaves, Fred's smile drops from his face. Fred then steals his father's keys to City Hall and texts his friends that he's coming. Fred meets the rest of his friends outside of City Hall. He voices his disapproval of stealing his father's keys, but Velma says they need to check his office for anything suspicious. Fred agrees but remains adamant that his father has nothing to do with the cursed treasure or the disappearances of the original Mystery Incorporated, no matter what Pericles may have said in the past. The gang enter Mayor Jones's office and begin to search the place. Fred is looking around when he notices a framed photo of his mother. He picks it up and begins to look at it. That's when Shaggy and Scooby bump into a cabinet which opens a drawer containing a scroll. The sudden commotion causes Fred to drop the framed photo and the frame breaks. The photo falls out of the frame, and as Fred goes to pick it up, he realizes that the photo isn't a photo at all, but a newspaper cutout. Fred begins to question the photo, however Velma diverts his attention to the scroll inside the cabinet. The gang examine the scroll and realize it's the same one the original Mystery Incorporated found beneath the church. More suspicions are raised against Mayor Jones and Fred is left even more confused. Velma then takes the scroll and Velma hides the newspaper cutout of his mother in his pocket. The gang decide to leave but stop when they hear a cry inside City Hall. They follow the sound and find the freak of Crystal Cove. Rather, the freak finds them. The freak chases them around City Hall and they manage to evade him by running outside. But when they reach outside, they come face to face with Sheriff Bronson Stone. Sheriff Bronson arrests the teenagers for breaking into City Hall. The gang are put into cells and their parents are called. The parents are furious at their children but plead for Mayor Jones not to press any charges. Mayor Jones thankfully does not press any charges. The parents are grateful but feel their children should no longer see each other. The parents decide to take the children home, but just before they are separated, the children devise a plan to meet each other again. As the gang is separated and taken to their respective homes, Angel watches from afar and makes a call to Ed Machine. Scooby and Shaggy are the first to arrive home. Once they are home, they are immediately sent to bed, where they overhear Shaggy's parents talking about potentially sending Shaggy to military school. Worried about the prospect of military school, Shaggy and Scooby take the piece they were hiding in case they need to make a getaway. Unfortunately, this proves to be a fatal mistake as the freak breaks into their room and attacks them. The freak tries desperately to take the piece from Shaggy and Scooby, but they evade him by jumping out of the window. Shaggy and Scooby run out onto the street. This is when Ed Machine appears in a car and tells them to get in. Ed then takes them to the K-Ghoul and then leaves. Shaggy and Scooby finds the rest of the gang already there with Cassidy. Cassidy tells them that she asked Ed to bring them here because it's where they would be safe. She apologizes for lying and tries to gain their trust again, but the gang refuses. They lock her in her studio and opt to solve the mystery on their own. Angel begs for them to come back, but her pleas fall deaf on their ears. Angel tries to call Ed, but he is unable to answer his phone after leaving it in his car. He goes home, but when he arrives, he finds Professor Pericles waiting for him. The lights in Ed's house begin to flash on and off, and Ed's screams echoes through the house as Pericles kills him. The gang return to the old Spanish church and they go down the entrance they had found in the previous episode. The entrance leads them to a cave system, the same one the original Mystery Incorporated had explored. Using the scroll they had stole from Mayor Jones and their piece of the disc, they find the location of the supposed treasure. The location leads them to a cavern where the gang find a chest atop a mountain of skulls, but when they open the chest, there's nothing inside. Professor Pericles, who has been tracking the gang, then reveals himself from the shadows. He commands the teenagers to give him their piece of the disc, but the teenagers refuse and state they are not afraid of him. Pericles steps forward and laughs, ready to take the piece from them, but the freak appears behind him and knocks him out. The freak then lunges at Velma, who is holding the piece, and knocks her aside. He steals the piece and runs deep into the caves. Fred triggers a booby trap that floods the place in order to stop the freak. Water begins to flood the caves, washing away the gang and the freak to the surface. The freak tries once again to flee by a cliff outside the church, but Fred chases after him. Fred climbs the cliff, hot on the freak's tail, while the rest of the gang watch from a distance. Unfortunately, Fred slips and is about to fall, but the freak grabs his hand and stops him from falling. The freak tries to escape once more, but this time Fred catches up with him and tackles him to the ground. Sheriff Stone, Cassidy, and all the parents also arrive at the scene in the nick of time. The gang catches up to Fred, who has the freak cornered. Before he unmasks the freak, he reveals that the freak is none other than his father, Mayor Jones.
Is this nigga serious?
Fred explains that he knew for a while that his father was suspicious, but his suspicions reach their peak when he finds out that the picture of his mother was a cutout from a newspaper and not his real mother. Fred questions his father, and the mayor explains that he had come to Crystal Cove many years ago when he was a young man, hoping to find the cursed treasure after hearing rumors about it. He had enrolled in Darrow University to aid his search. During the day he would look through the library archives, and during the night he would roam the streets as the freak of Crystal Cove. Alas, his search led him nowhere. This was until one day the original Mystery Incorporated came into the library he was working at asking for help. They had found a scroll in the old Spanish church. They had no idea what they had stumbled across. That is, except for their mascot Pericles, who knew exactly what he was looking for. Seeing that they both had a common interest, Professor Pericles and Fred Jones Sr. teamed up behind the backs of the original Mystery Incorporated. And when the time came where the teenagers found a piece of the disc beneath the old Spanish church, Fred Jones Sr., dressed as the freak, fabricated incriminating documents and made the gang leave town. Fred Jones Sr. was meant to share the disc with Pericles but double-crossed them, keeping the disc and the scroll for himself, and then he framed Pericles for the disappearance of the kids. However, his plans were nearly foiled by Brad Charles and Judy Reeves, who had married and had a child but wanted to return to Crystal Cove. Seeing this as a threat, Mayor Jones kidnapped the child and threatened to do the child harm if Brad and Judy were to ever return. The child he stole was Fred Jones Jr., making Brad and Judy Reeves Fred's biological parents. After hearing the truth, Fred is furious and demands that Mayor Jones give him the piece, but he is unable to as the piece is missing, presumably washed away in the caves when the trap was triggered. Fred walks away from everybody and stands alone at the edge of the cliff in disbelief and upset that he had parents he never knew about. He then announces that he's leaving Crystal Cove to find his parents and that he's leaving Mystery Incorporated. His friends try to stop him, but they are pulled away by their parents. Shaggy's parents tell Shaggy that he is to be sent to military school and that Scooby is going to live on a farm from now on. Daphne, upset and angry, blames Velma for not telling them about Angel sooner. Swiftly after, Velma is escorted home by her own parents. Scooby watches as his friends go in different directions before going into Shaggy's parents' car. When he enters, Pericles is sitting in the car as well, holding two pieces of the disc, one that he stole in a previous episode and the one that had been swept away in the caves. Pericles states that he only has 4 more pieces to find before saying goodbye to Scooby-Doo and flying away. As he does this, Scooby-Doo vows to get the gang back together and vows that he will stop Pericles.
I'll get the gang back together, Pericles. We'll be coming for you, or my name isn't Scooby-Doo.
And that concludes Season 1. In the following months, I will make a part 3 and a follow-up to this video. It will be the final installment to this series. As for now, thanks for watching.